Well, good morning and happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne. Disembodied voice, John, and Justin are on board as well. How are you today? I hope your Fridays are going well. Some of you are already off work for the weekend. Looking at you, Europeans. Morning. Yeah, we have a concept art that we used for this one that had stripes, but different stripes. Let me get that up, actually. Where are you? Stripey Weathering. There's Stripey Weathering. Stripey Wyvern. Let me get down on the thing. Who's it? There. Stripey Weathering. So this is the pattern that we're doing. And today I'm going to actually start blocking in some of the cool tones on the underbelly. I think that's what I want to do. Because I'm sick of seeing his little like jawline just sitting there. So I want to get in close and do more of that. And if you look, they're bringing some of the orange-red down into that area. They've got a little bit on the lower jaw, and they're bringing a little bit of kind of a clouded, blended pattern down into that. So we're going to keep that in mind as we move forward. Alrighty. Hey, Airwiz, thank you for the resub. Wow, 17 months. Jazzy, because I had been painting little for so long, and I really, really, really liked painting bigger. I like to do very large things. And once I realized how much fun I had when I did bigger things, let me get in focus and zoom in. Mr. Wyvern was zoomed out. But yeah, so I like doing bigger things, and so just naturally I was like, that's gonna be my screen name. It was like, I found that after years and years and years, like over 20 years of painting 28 millimeter, I really, really enjoyed 75s and 54s and like statues and things like that and big busts. So yeah, so that's how I got there. And then I got my logo made like by a professional so that it would look nice and have a dragon on it. And David suggested actually that I convert one of the little Rocky dragons to be the painting big dragon, except a baby chibi form, and I use that as a little mascot. And so it's a good idea, so I probably will. So it's a big little. Hey, Jetty Jared. But yeah, so that is how I chose my name. Also, I liked it because it had kind of a connotation with like thinking big, only painting big. And I do like to think big, so double. It's a double thing. So okay, Wyvern, you all know who this is. This is the Wyvern. So let's start with some colors that we were going to use on the underside. And when I was looking at the colors that I had and the concept art, the colors that stood out were Osirian Sand and perennial favorite Wolf Gray. And bleached linen. There we go. Yeah, because he's my mascot for my new thing, Tiny Tips, Muses. Like Soldier is my mascot right now on my banners and stuff. Soldier 76, the statue that I did, which is a foot tall. So that's big. But for the new little Tiny Tips YouTube show, I wanted something small, and so David suggested I do a little Rocky that was painted like my Painted Big Dragon. So cute. Cute. Painting big tiny tips. Yes. I only have one video up. I shot the second one. It should hopefully go up later today. I have to do a lot of video editing today. Actually, I want to put reminder to myself right in front of myself because I have actually a lot to do today. Without sticky notes, I would be lost, people. Seriously. Video editing. TT up. And I need to get my first video of the month up for Patreon as well. Here we go. Alrighty. Yay. Note to do. But yeah, so there we go. Boop. Hey there, Bob and Julie. A lot, Selmari. A lot. Desert sand and desert stone are based more on, they're based actually on Egyptian stone that I was looking at in photographs. I have a lot of Egypt photo references because I love Egyptian stuff and archaeology. So desert sand is much browner. It's much more a stone and like organic sand color, and it's a lot less yellow. This is a very yellow sand. But precisely because of that, I actually love this color because it's like the palest yellow that you'll find. It is muted. It's not a really, really bright yellow, like lemon yellow or anything. But it's a great highlight color for anything natural, like that is otherwise golden. Like you can use it as a highlight for this desert sand. It actually works great as a desert sand highlight. It also is great for things like highlighting lions and leopards and anything like that is that color, palomino horses, stuff like that. Yeah, that's cool, Matt. Yeah, I thought about it. I took a lot of archaeology and anthropology classes in college, but the difficulty of getting berths and digs and the dubiousness of career afterwards stopped me because I didn't really feel like getting my PhD. So, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I took a lot of archaeology, English, and philosophy alongside my art studies, which were the point, one might argue. Yes, it's a Bob and Julie. I'm not going to do a dragon, actually, Valandar. Again, I mentioned that a few times. That I'm never going to paint a big dragon on stream again. Because now that we're painting everything to completion, we learned with the Dance of Death that it just takes too long. It takes too long and you're working on the same stuff all the time and people get bored and leave. That's why the new format with the round robin of models... That's why I decided to go this route, is because that way we're working on different projects, but we are painting them to completion. And at the end, you can, look back and see it. And it's not taking up the camera with the same darn techniques every day. So yeah, the most I will maybe do, I mentioned, I might grab one of Maldrakar's heads and convert it and paint it and do it that. Just to talk a little bit about big dragons. But in general, it's just scales, more scales, more scales, more scales, and then some scales on top of your scales. And you're doing that for weeks. So it's really not a great topic. Unless maybe you're just doing your own stream and you want to do 6-hour blocks, where you just get everything done. Then that can be fun. Yeah, well, and the other thing, Salmari, is to remember that the swatches that you see usually on screen for paints are usually actually, they're made to print out, and so they aren't great matches. Also, everybody's monitor is different, and so the problem there is that you are going to see a different shade of yellow from this swatch than I am on my particular monitor calibration. And people's monitors go greener or bluer or warmer, yellower. They do all sorts of weird stuff, darker, lighter. We used to run into that when we were kind of double checking our swatches. Because I would do it on one computer and then Brian would pop it up on another computer and it would look different. So, well, the Wyvern is my answer to that, Pendrake. I don't really feel like I need we're painting things on dragon. This is a dragon kin, it is draconic. This is my answer. I don't feel like I need to paint another dragon after the Wyvern. Especially now when Dance of Death is out there. There's a lot of content already about me painting dragons. And I purposefully looked for a model a concept art that made this very different, right? That had a lot of different things going on with it, because otherwise it would have been boring as heck if we painted this reddish brown and be done. Yes. Yeah, that's just the way that adding in black on the monitor, to get close to that. Yeah, it screws it up. It's just the way it is. I mean, that's why Vallejo does those paint swatch things where they've actually painted a swatch of the paint onto them. But those aren't nearly as convenient, when you're looking online for new paint. Valinor, we'd have to go back and correct everything. Like, you know, if you have any idea, like, how long it took me and Brian to do those swatches, like, that was never redone because there was always something more urgent. So, yes, Reaper could go back and correct everything and try to get it closer, but it still wouldn't match everybody's monitor. It's a hard call. If you really want it, write to Reaper and ask that they put that on their board, right? To correct, like, online swatches so that they look more in line with what you see in person. But I am not the one to lobby on that, because I know how much time it took, and I know why it didn't, you know. We had it good enough, and I think they have corrected some of them. But yeah, Muses has it. I mean, yeah, Pantone, but not all paints are formulated to match a Pantone swatch. You could probably get close. Even Pantone doesn't have everything, though. I mean, I use Pantone swatches and sliders to create the Pathfinder line. But even then, like, it's not perfect. Like, it's as close as you can get. But Pantone is done with inks. It's a printer's thing, right? So then when you try to do that with pigments, you don't always get a perfect match. You get close. You get very close. All right, so we're getting our colors mixed up here, and then I need a bit of my red and my orange. Yeah, so you know how fraught with peril it is. I mean, the best thing you can do if you're hovering between two greens is not to trust the swatch and to go onto the Discord and say, hey guys, I'm looking for a dark green that's like a little bit more yellowy and not as bluey. And I was looking at these two colors. Which one was more like what I want? And the community will answer you. And they probably, even somebody enterprising, will grab the colors and swatch them together so you can see. It takes a little longer, and you don't get your immediate gratification, but if you're really concerned, that's the way to do it. No, they don't. Yeah, exactly. Yes, and Quindy with the Discord link there. Because that really is the way to do it. It really is. Ask the community. People own these colors. Tell them what you're looking for. Ask them, or even like, you know, say, hey, I'm looking for a good dark green and I want to use it on this type of model. And what colors do you guys use and what do they like, you know? And then ask, oh, that looks really dark. Is it really dark? You know? Yeah, it's a pain in the butt to use. I mean, like, Pantone swatches are probably the best way to really get the idea of what the, if you're working for a company, of what the company wants. But it's also a pain in the butt to try to match inks with pigments. You can't really use any of their formulas as a starting point because they're working with stuff that you just don't have and that acts differently. So you can kind of use it to get an idea of how they got there, but it still won't act exactly right. So... all right, where's my orange brown and my mahogany brown? There we go. Morning, Otter Mama. Right, yeah, and a lot of you have done that, Otter. You're not the only one that has told me they've made a swatch book themselves. And Sadie did that when she was learning the line. She swatched all the colors so that she could, like, learn more, like, more internalize what each of them looks like and which ones are different from others and how, so she could put them next to each other. And it's a fun project. Takes time, but if you really want to, like, understand the colors, it's a good project. Just laying out all my colors together because I'm going to be doing a little bit of mixing and maybe glazing, so I want to have everything mixed up. So we've got our wolf gray, Osirian sand, and bleached linen, and we've got our our mahogany brown and our orange brown, and I did realize yesterday that maybe I could use kobold scale as a highlight for my mahogany, and I might do that. Because I was okay with how using the orange to highlight the red scales looked, but then it brings it really close to the wings, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. So, makes it look very analogous, which can be good on a critter, but I maybe want a little bit more difference on mine. Morning, crows. Yeah, he bought, and that always happens. I mean, all of us have done that, Otter. Bought the same color that we already had because we didn't remember we owned it, because we hadn't, maybe our paints weren't organized, or we had put it aside in a little bag to sort it in later, and we never did it. Yeah, it was mine. That was my case, is I would buy it and bring it home in a little bag, and then the little bag would sit around, and I wouldn't have time to sort the paints into my paint carrier, and then when, the time came, I'd totally forget that I bought it and buy another one. Is it coffee? It's not. Yesterday was my coffee day, Shadow Raven. So, all right, here we go. Let's go. Let's get this bikini bottom off of this Wyvern. We're going to start with wolf gray on everything. Wolf gray, as you can tell, is exactly the color of Bones plastic. But I still need a nice coat of it over the top of the bones. And I'm just going to want it on the belly. I did think about utilizing, like, making the underside of these wings lighter, but the jury's still out. I'm kind of ruminating on it. Whenever I'm not sure what I want to do on a model, I just honestly just think about it. Like, I just put it in the back of my head. I'm like, oh, wait, well, I'm going to kind of let this roll around in the back of my head for a while. I don't rush it. There's no hurry. I'm probably going to come up with a better idea if I kind of, like, mull over it for a while. My paint has gotten a little thin here, so it may beat up. Although it's kind of making, like, noises like it wants to, but it's not actually doing it, so it's good. I just want to cover that belly. Not quite exactly the same color. You can see it's a little warmer. Hello, Rax. It's good to see you. All right, let's get this up. He's got a little bit of plastic clinging to him still from when I was cleaning. There. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking maybe Kobold Scale will work to highlight this, or a mixture of Kobold Scale with something will work to highlight this dark red. Kobold Scale's a little more red, a little lighter. It's not orangey. So it would be a nice change. So I don't want to just shade and highlight everything with the same colors, because that would be really monotonous. Oh, cheap starter sculpting tool set at the grocery store. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Bob and Julie. So Reaper Forums. I wonder if you could Google it and find it online. Maybe somebody will try that. Yeah, most of us get sculpting tools by building up a collection of them over the years, I think. But it's nice to find a good starter set. Just got to get that base down. Now, I do see that this isn't quite as dark as some of the shadows on our concept arts. So I am going to probably grab a darker gray. Need to touch up the scales on the other side here, too. Manicure set. Interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just had one day that I was down, Rax. Usually, my immune system is pretty darn aggressive, so if I get sick, it lasts for a day. I haven't gotten sick for years. They had to actually, I just joking that they had to stick disease into me with a needle in order to actually make me sick. But yeah, when I used to get sick, it's like, it's a one-day affair. I'm not one of those people who kind of just linger on. I tend to just hit myself with a bunch of sleep, and that's good enough. I think it was the disrupted sleep that made me feel bad more than the actual side effects. Yeah. Oh, I didn't see it, Trash. I'm not sure who sculpted it. Although so many of our sculptors are doing like top-notch work these days that, you know, you could give me anybody's name and I wouldn't be surprised. Just gonna connect these guys so we've got those red scales coming. Good, all better. Yeah. And now, hypothetically, at least, even if I do get it at some point, it'll be really mild. So, David and I are going out to dinner tomorrow to celebrate being vaccinated, fully vaccinated. Gonna drive up into the mountains. It should be really pretty. Alright, so just kind of re-blocking in some stuff now that I'm working on the underside. I'm trimming up areas. I'm putting a second coat on where the first coat was really thin. We'll put in a bit of orange here and shade it with the red. I probably did thin my orange a little bit too much, so I'm gonna... Oh, nice, Chibi. Yay for chilling. I believe they're saying... Yes, I believe they're trying to imply you're on another level, folks, but, you know. It's Shadow Raven, you never know. Yay! Good, Rax. I'm glad. I'm glad that you're finally like becoming free again. Free the raccoons! Oh wait, that sounds bad. They'd take over the world. I know enough about raccoons to be highly suspicious of the Free the Raccoons slogan. Alrighty. So let's do that wet blend that I did on the other side to make this kind of blend in a bit. And I'll probably be using something similar to this to make the red blend into this gray. So while it's wet, grab a tiny bit of the red and apply it near the arm. I'm just taking little tiny bits. Like, this is very much a spot wet blending. And by spot wet blending, it just means I'm not like blending the whole surface. I'm choosing to just blend a very small spot of it. And when my orange inevitably starts to dry out, I'll reapply it a bit. I could even do a little mix of the red and orange like it's on my brush right now and kind of layer it on. But you want to kind of have that fade. What it does to work a little bit of that red into that orange is it just makes it all look like it is organic. It all does go together. There's not like really harsh lines. You can kind of blur the interface of those two things so that they're still separate things, but they work together. You can see the colors of one echoed in the other. And I tend to like that effect a bit when you're dealing with something like this. I think that it's too easy to make dragons look pretty block painted if you just like cut off the color at one place and switch to a different color on the wings or the underbelly. So I'm going to be working to kind of create a bit of a fade and blend. All you want is food and shinies like everyone else. So I want to open up a bucket of worms. David and I were talking about painting competitions this morning. There are some competitions out there, like Golden Demon or like the old Crystal Brush, or there's some others that are very much like, it's the top 3 type of competition, right? It's like, it rewards like the best models, and it doesn't do a lot of the other stuff that like ReaperCon does, like, right? So like, what do you guys think about those competitions? Like, would you ever have entered Crystal Brush? Like, some people say they're elitist, and I don't agree with that. But I just wondered what you guys thought about competitions like that do the first, second, third. I guess all the IPMS shows are still like that, and, you know, for a long time, all miniatures competitions were like that. Gen Con, I think, is also still like that. It just rewards the, top 4 in each category you would have entered? Because my big fear with those has always been that that it discourages people from entering. If they feel like they can't win, they won't enter. Yeah, I see. I could see that, GB. Wouldn't have entered. Yeah, I mean, ReaperCon, the reason we went that way is we wanted to encourage people, right? We wanted to encourage people, even and especially if they weren't, like, super awesome yet, right? And we wanted to be able to give you guys kind of a system that gave you a bit of feedback, even if it was only a score. But, of course, we also make the judges available, which is something that's usually done, although maybe not as enthusiastically as we do at Reaper. So, yeah, there's definitely a reason we do really like the open system and think that it is the best format for ReaperCon. But David and I still enter at other formats, right? So I entered Crystal Brush, and we entered at like KublaCon, and in the past I've entered at Gen Con and stuff like that. But is it really then, is it a measure of if you feel like you can compete at the level, at what you perceive as the level of the competition? Do you like it more if a competition like that, like, does a couple of different tiers maybe? Where, like, you have a more of an intermediate level to enter, or a general competition, and then maybe a master's level competition at the same thing? Like, is that a good equalizer for that kind of system to make it more accessible? Yeah, tiers competing, right? Right, exactly. People can be jerks. Yeah, that's cool, Dogfather. I also, I remember Golden Demon when it used to be in Baltimore. Golden Demon seemed to have, I mean, there were people who entered who knew that they weren't at the level of the top entries, but they still were proud to have entered, right? And so that's what, you also get that mindset, right? Where it's like, I'm just proud that I finished something for Golden Demon that I'm proud of, right? And so I'm going to enter it. I don't really care if I win. And that's, I was talking to David, and I'm like, that's like where I am in my life, kind of. Like, I entered Crystal Brush, and I knew I wasn't going to win. I wanted to, like, at least make the first cut, the photo cut, so my model would be up on the website, which I accomplished. But I find these days, because I've won Golden Demons, and, you know, I've won stuff, I find that the thing that is most rewarding for me is actually the working on the model. Like, the actual working on doing my best on a competition model, and being able to then, like, get feedback from my peers and have them like the model. Like, that's what drives me. So that's why I'm interested in this question, and why David and I spent a lot of our breakfast kind of discussing it. Because he likes to win. He's definitely got a competitive thing going on when he goes in. That's actually what motivated him to become as good as he is that he wanted to be competitive. And that, I guess, was a motivator for me earlier in my career, but not at all now. Now I just want to paint something that I'm, like, happy with, that I feel like I've done very well at, and that people I respect feel is good. There we go. So we've got nice solid blocking. We're getting these orange colors in. I'm debating putting kind of a fade here. I need to look at my concept art here. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that, Muses, actually. Yeah, and Otter, I can see that. Like, if it stresses you out to try to paint, I mean, although you shouldn't, like, ever be trying to paint at a level well beyond where you are. What you should ask yourself, if you want to get better and enjoy your hobby at a higher level, is what is my next step? And it should never be one that gets you hugely out of your comfort zone, unless, say, you're at already at a high competition level. Then, you know, those of us kind of relish that. But some of us do anyway. I am one. But when you're an intermediate level painter, it really pays off and gives you more enjoyment if you just ask yourself, what's the next little thing I could work on? And then just work on that. And don't attach a lot of, like, importance to it. Just try it, right? Expand your horizon. Yeah. You can't win if you don't enter, yeah. And that makes me sad, because I feel like competitions are such a great way to get together with other people in the community, and they're also a good way to get better, right? Because it may motivate you to ask, okay, what's the next thing I could do to get a little bit better? And even at Crystal Brush, I found that even if they don't give feedback, but you could go and ask other high-level painters for feedback on your piece, and because there were a lot of them there, and that was valuable. All right, so here with this dragon, they have definitely gone to the white is only on the belly, and they've gone the orange on the underside of the wings. And they've darkened it toward the root of the wing, toward where the bones are coming out, which would imply that if we want to do this color scheme, we should pretty much duplicate what we did on the back of the dragon on the underside of the dragon. But I'm thinking I might go a little lighter, and we'll see. I may try this, guys, and if it gives us an ugly color, I'll just decide not to do it. But I'm thinking about doing a blend, but doing my orange with, say, my Osirian sand. So still having more of the reddish color up here on the struts of the wings. I think it also has, like, the blue-black is coming down on the struts. So I need my, I think I was using Blue Liner or Kraken Ink for that. I was using Kraken Ink for that. So let's get our Kraken Ink out. Yeah, Dogfather. I think that's a really healthy, like, mindset. I mean, yeah, the open format is nice because, yeah, everything is always, I mean, you're always going to get some subjective judgment. I mean, it's always, even the best of us judges, we're trying. I mean, we're trying to be objective, but even me, and I try hard to be objective as much as I can, but even I have biases, right? So even if I try to select against those biases, then I'm biasing in the opposite direction. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult to be a judge. Remember that when you talk to us after for feedback. Yeah, cool, Arrowiz. And then if you do better, then you'll be happy. Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm totally not arguing with you guys that the open system is like really a good format. It is, though, if you think about it, it's a format for a particular community, right? It's a very good format for the Reaper community, where we want, at our core, we want to encourage you guys to paint and to enjoy painting, and to, if you wish to get better at painting, right? By giving you feedback, attainable feedback that you can slowly improve with. Yeah, that's true. That's true, Muses. I mean, there are people out there that try to kind of game the system by figuring out who's going to judge and painting to the style that judge likes. But, you know, with varying degrees of success or non-success. This is a Wyvern, Martian. Hold on, I missed your first question. Which could also have been, is it a Wyvern? Nope, it's a Wyvern, and we're doing it, Wyverns are usually red-brown, and so I'm going with a muted reds and oranges. Hold on. And we used a specific piece of concept art. So yeah, so we're doing this, and I'm working on the underside right now, trying to figure out what we're going to do for the underside of the wings. I just didn't want to make my Wyvern a really dull red-brown like they're often pictured. I thought that would be kind of boring. I wanted to make a prettier Wyvern, so... A more interesting wyvern to paint on stream. How about that? Alright, so we've got our Kraken Ink, which is a lovely color. Is this out yet? Somebody, Quindy, is it out yet? Is it in the store? Can I start, like, telling people to go buy 5 bottles? Yeah, everybody's trying to figure it out. I mean, I don't think that it's, like, necessarily cheating to figure out, you know, if you know who the judge is and you know what they like, to play to it. Although, I tend to just paint what I feel like and may the chips fall where they may. But as discussed, I'm not necessarily... I'm still competitive, but I'm not like... If I don't win, I don't take it personally. Competing against yourselves. Yes, I agree, Max Styles. I pretty much am competing against myself at this point. Just in the fast palette. Okay, Quindy. Well, let's yell at Ed. Yeah, so... Alright, good. As long as it's available. Because you really do want this dark purple. It's just a really sexy color. You want it. Go get the set. Especially if Sharkbite is in that set. Because that's also a fantastic color. Sadie did great with those colors. But yeah, I like to talk about competitions in here every once in a while because I like to see what you guys think about it. Because it's been a long time, like, you know, I used to compete at, like, game store level, you know, when I was, before I wasn't really nearly as good as I am now, right? And then I was excited to compete and I was excited to, like, try to paint my best, right? But I was a competitive person, and so I kind of worked with myself a little bit on that, on not feeling... like, disappointed if I didn't win, right? It took a long time to just try to shift my mind to, like, enjoying the process. Yeah, Sharkbite's a great color. Thanks, Marshan. Yeah. I think he or she is coming out very well. Julie, did you have a he or a she on this one? Is it a he or a she? Do you know? The sculptor's in the chat, Marshan. So... since it's just wyvern. And it doesn't come with baby wyverns. Not really. Just kind of a wyvern. Alright. That's acceptable. So, in our concept art, the struts on the underside of the wings were definitely done very dark. With the blue-black or near-black. We're using a purple-black. I may kind of mix it with the red a little bit. To get kind of a dark red-purple. If I was smart, though, as Anne stops herself, I would do all my mock-up on this big space first, and then do the struts. Let's do that. Yeah, online stuff is you're right, rarely about the technique, but it depends on the competition, I expect. But, like, technique is where it's at when you're learning. Like, if you can, like, get comfortable with technique, everything else follows. Don't worry about being artistic or, you know, like, doing something amazing necessarily. Just concentrate on your little steps, on the basic techniques of mini painting. And before you know it, you're going to be able to do anything. Like, you just... I always tell people, layering glazing is the entry level, like... Once you've got that down, that's the foundation. Once you've got layering and glazing down, you can do anything. Because that's where you can get smooth blends, you can get textures, you can start working on your lighting and get better NMN blending and all these different things. But fundamentally, technically, at a technical ability level, the doors are wide open if you get the layering and glazing down. Yeah, it's mahogany brown. So it's not quite, it's not quite purple enough to be a burgundy. I chose a brownish red on purpose because of the whole reddish brown wyvern, traditional wyvern colors. I need a big brush, and I cannot lie. I think I'm going to use my big fat mixing brush that doesn't have a tip anymore. Because for wet blending, sometimes you kind of want that. So I'm going to start out, I decided to stop and do this first. I'm going to start out here. do a band of orange. I'm going to paint over my strut. I'll just go back over it later. And I'm going to go all the way up. Now, if I want this paint to stay wet for wet blending longer, I should use more paint. If you use a little bit more paint, it'll stay wet a little longer and you have more time to blend. Whereas if you brush this really thin over the area, you're going to be in more trouble. So here, if I'm going to try to blend this whole wing area with a lighter color, which I am, I'm going to actually overcommit on my paint a bit, blob it on a little bit, so that I have time to blend this entire big area. If I was smarter, I would do this in sections, but I'm impatient today, so. Then I'll start picking up my lighter color. I'm just going to paint right over the struts, even though the struts are going to be a different color. I don't care. I'll be able to do that later. If I feel like my stuff isn't blending together, I can rinse out my brush, come back in, kind of do my blends. My paint is very thin here, so I'm not getting a real thick coat, which may come back to bite me later. I may need to do another layer. We'll see. I should have thickened up. When you don't put a base coat down and you wet blend, you really should thicken your paint, but like I said, I'm being a rebel, so I may just have to do some glazing and layering to thicken up my coverage. But anyway, yay wet blending. Mostly I'm trialing this color scheme. I want to see if it works, if I like it. If I like going pale toward the edges with the orange. And if so, I can come back with thicker paint and do it again. Or do another coat. And using a big round brush without a sharp tip, a flat would work well as well, but my other flat is too big for this. Yeah, not really a skin tone, in my opinion, just too orange. You would have to add a little bit of red to make it look really like skin. Hold on, I got a little bit streaky there. Hello, Nomad Zeke. Yeah, it is a great color. Like I said, really good for auburn hair. Or for, like, red chestnut horses. Like, for a shadow for them. Foxes. Shading on foxes. Also excellent. It's just a very utilitarian color. For reddish brown. You need it if you are painting Irish setters. You could certainly use it as the basis for a skin tone, Marshawn. You just need to add a little bit more red, I think. This, the orange brown has a lot of yellow in it. It's got a very heavy front load of yellow pigment in it. And so it does tend to go very orange. Although on camera it does look a little more washed out. So overall, I am thinking that I like this effect. I think I want it even lighter toward the outside though. So I've got to let it dry and then I'll do another blend. And I will probably do like a wash or a glaze. Probably a big glaze to kind of pull these areas together. And I also want to go back and wet blend up top to bring more red in so that it's a darker reddish color up again near here. Just like we did up here. Wood carving contests have tiered levels, basic, intermediate, advanced, and pros, but you determine your level. Yeah, I used to hate those tiers. I used to really, mostly because, like, they would, like, assess my model and tell me that I should enter, or somebody might tell me I should enter intermediate, but I really wanted to compete at the top level and see what the judges thought. You know, stuff like that. I mean, I as a person always disliked tiered systems, but these days I do feel like it's the only way to run some of those, like, first, second, third competitions, where otherwise you get no feedback. You have no idea how you did, you know. Shadow Raven. All right, well, let's actually thicken up our paint and do this on the other side with a little less see-through. where is there? Assyrian Sand is our yellow for the day. Our only yellow we're using on this model, and it's a very muted pale yellow. So I'm just gonna kind of double the pigment, the paint in here, take the water down. So that I get better coverage out the gate, which will help me with the wet blending. The other thing I could do is to just put a layer of orange over this entire thing and then do the wet blending on top of it. And that's what I really usually do. But as I said, on stream, yes, unless you're a microphone. Cute trash. Yeah, feedback is important. That's why we went that way with the Reaper competition. Don't get me wrong, I do feel like the Reaper competition and World Expo uses a very similar format. I do believe that the open system is the best system for miniature painting judging. Because it is more like, it's a juried art show format is what it is. But it still allows you to give out things like manufacturer awards or special awards or tiered awards, like the best in show competition and stuff like that. So I do feel like it is, but yet so many like smaller competitions can't afford to do open system because of the amount of awards, right? Because everybody who deserves an award at a certain level gets one. So I think that always drove Gen Con away from it. They looked at it when Sue was running it. They looked at open system and said, no way can we afford that many trophies and ribbons and stuff. So that puts a barrier up to getting more small competitions to do open. So if you can't do open then because of financial concerns with your organization or your con, then you've got to look at those first, second, thirds, right? But maybe the tiered system is then the answer to that, much as I always disliked it when I was learning to paint. It may be the only way to have a first, second, third format and still give the feedback and the opportunities and the encouragement that you want to give in the hobby. Because that is really, I feel, some of the thing you lose with that type of competitions. You lose the encouragement factor. You get a discouragement factor instead, and that's not a fun. Shadow Raven is actually our most sarcastic person, Marshen, so you probably didn't realize that there was a great deal of sarcasm in that. No, don't ever take Shadow Raven seriously. Ever. I think Shadow Raven's feelings actually get hurt if you take him seriously. But yeah, people with that sort of attitude for reals usually don't get much out of my stream. We're very positive and lighthearted here. Yes, the only thing Raven is serious about is getting a Sophie bust. Yes, exactly. Nice, Chibi. How could I have predicted that your minor Chibi could pwn the cosplay? It's cool. I just want to let you know. You had no way of knowing because, it's Shadow Raven. And you are new, so you don't know Shadow Raven. So our comment is merely to let you know Shadow Raven. That's why we all ignored him. But it's all good. Wake up. Have some caffeine. Other people have had their caffeine. I've already had my caffeine. I don't let myself have very much in the morning. But yeah, I think what I like about open system is the inclusion. Now, there are definitely very competitive people out there who prefer the 1, 2, 3 format for competitions, right? Because they're competitive and they want to compete at that level. Like, those people thrive on that. But, but it definitely is not as inclusionary for the newer painter, So I'm happy that, I'm not asking this because we're planning on changing open system. Far from it. Open system is like what we do at ReaperCon is staying. Like we're doing I think we're just going to make a small change to the award ceremony to get it run a little faster this year. But that's about it. And that was just something I heard may not be actual gospel, so never take... Like I said, I'm not on the ground at Reaper anymore, so never take anything I say as gospel or reality. It's just an impression that I got, so... That's why we all ignored him. Oh, Shadow. I meant we didn't play into your silliness. You do have the t-shirt, though, like Rhonda does, Shadow Raven. Do you have the sorry t-shirt? It's a moving target, yes. Oh, you're not really new here? You might be new to Shadow Raven. Gotcha, Marshan. I haven't seen you talk before, I don't think. Maybe I've seen you once in the past? I don't know. So I thought you were new. My apologies. Doo-doo-doo. Alright, so I'm just doing a little, like, this is the smarter way to do wet blending, is one section at a time. And actually, I do need to switch back to my my big fat brush, I think. I think so? Yeah, this brush is a little skinny. Like, when you're doing wet blending, the more fluff you've got, the better sometimes. If you're trying to do these big, broad areas and get a good blend. You want a fluffy brush, but not too wide fluffy brush. A fluffy brush that fits nicely in the area you are attempting to blend. Much like with dogs, fluff is good. Unless you're a Mexican hairless fan, then I'll give it to you, but in general, fluff is good. So I'm almost using this like a makeup blending brush at this point. I'm using the blunt end, and I'm just kind of pulling the orange up into the red, because I want the red to be more near the paw here. Yeah, it is fun. It's super fun to walk through like ReaperCon or one of the like Chicago, the Chicago show, which is also open system. I've always wanted to go to a World Expo in Europe for that reason. I hear they get like 10,000 entries. Imagine a competition 10 times the size of ReaperCon, guys. Pretty crazy, huh? Because ReaperCon is already like huge. Yeah, I still have my lint roller from Kiri Dog. Eventually we'll get a puppy and I'll need the lint roller again. Oop, there was a David, and then there wasn't. But yeah, I'm excited because, you know, we'll get competitions coming back now, hopefully, in America at least. And hopefully you guys in Europe will get your stuff back, as if you keep kicking the virus to the curb. I hope everybody gets their personal, like, little con venue back in the future. Near future, rather than far future. I'm excited about going to ReaperCon this year and being able to see people in person again. And it's got me motivated to, like, paint more, to get a couple of new things that I can enter in the competition. There's David again. Yes, Dr. Bob. A while David appeared, and then he left. Oh, okay. Oh, Martian, that works. Bracket system. We do teams for ReaperCon, Chibi. I don't know if are you familiar with the ReaperCon system? So it is teams of 3 judges. Which is not to say that one team doesn't judge maybe a little bit harder than another team. It's just natural. Like I said, you try really hard to be objective as a judge, but you're influenced by your own ideas and you're influenced by the specific section that that you're judging. Like if you've got a lot of really high-end people, but also a lot of really, more beginner people, then it can be hard to keep like kind of on an even keel on what your medal roles are. It's difficult. Like, never doubt that judging miniatures is hard. It's really hard. Ha! No, don't tip us, please. You do actually, hey Val, you do actually get burned out, Chibi. Like, Jennifer and I went to the Chicago show one year, which is the Military Miniatures of Illinois Society show. It's one of the biggest historical shows in the world, or at least it used to be. And a lot of the people there will spend all year just scratch sculpting these amazing dioramas or models, and then that will be like their project for the year. And it's just mind-blowing how good some of those dioramas were. Like, we walked halfway around the show, got tired, had to go and take a break and eat some dinner, and then went back. So you actually do get fatigued looking at so much amazing. Like, there is definitely like a saturation point where your brain fills up. Yeah, like we totally do. That's why we do teams. We try to get a feel for like who to place and, you know, what judges work well together. And if there's somebody that we know who tends to be a little bit of a harder judge, sometimes we'll try to put, you know, somebody who is a little bit of a softer judge with them, you know, that kind of thing, so that everything kind of balances out. But it's really hard. It's really hard. Like, give Michael Proctor props. He who does the Crow's Nest, because he's the one who organizes the judging teams and kind of oversees the whole thing every year. So it's not an easy job, and he does it for free. So thank Michael for the work that he has put in, please, to the Master Series Open competition. I'm sure that he doesn't hear it enough, and he would love to hear it. So if you see him, when you see him at ReaperCon, please tell him how much we appreciate it. Because I am one voice, but you are many voices. No, not at all. We don't really get judge fatigue because, Dr. Bob, because we have several teams. So, like, we've got, like, 4 different teams. So we all split up the categories. So we don't get, you get tired by the end of the night, but you're not, like, you don't get, like, creative fatigue thing going on, in my experience. Because we split it up. So it's not like one team has to judge the entire competition. Yeah, Michael gives fantastic feedback. In some D&D, Marsh, like the Spelljammer old D&D thing, and I don't know who did. And you'll always find those fantasy worlds where there are firearms. But Starjammer and stuff was the first old science fiction D&D. You guys probably know more because some of you are like, doesn't Pathfinder even have kind of a downed spaceship setting in their world? So we're doing some wet blending. So see how this wet blending is like making all of our stuff like both stand out, and it's also tying the wings into the paw, right? It's making the wings look like they belong attached to the paw. And once I shade this paw with my Kraken ink, and then once I have those shadows in, I'll be able to pull these struts down. Maybe I'll start them with red, though, instead of starting them with the Kraken ink. And then I'll transition to Kraken ink pretty fast. Do it that way. Maybe I'll mix the two together. I guess I was doing kind of a mix. So kind of starting like that. That's more like what the concept art we were using looks like. Now I need to switch off of my big fat brush. Oh, I actually should blend this wing first. Pathfinder has a down spaceship part and a whole future space setting as well. Okay, cool. There we go. So Pathfinder is D&D, Marcia, and you probably know about it already. But it's 3.75, although now it's probably 3.8 because they did a new edition, so I'm not sure how close to the old edition it is, or if it's a very different beast. Yeah, it's always been kind of controversial to mix your sci-fi and your fantasy, but there are lots of settings that do it well, like Shadowrun is probably the one that comes to mind for me with the urban fantasy setting. And then of course you've got role-playing games now based on things like what's his name's books. Arg. You know who I mean. Famous wizard guy. Not Harry Potter. Jim Butcher, yeah. The video, thank you, Winterkill. Yeah, the RPG based on his worlds. So you have a fair number of like urban fantasy, modern fantasy. Although you're much more likely to see psionics than magic when you see a fantasy sci-fi mix-up. But Shadowrun manages to cross the streams very well, I always thought. Again, a little bit of wet blending here. Get this wing to look like it actually belongs. Very different beast. Yeah. I was just actually looking at my old Shadowrun 3rd edition book. It's one of the few... I had so many RPGs back at the old house and the old life, and a lot of them just went the way of the dodo when I moved, or my ex kept them, but I kept my Shadowrun because it was it was the first RPG game that I played with somebody other than my little brother. It was the first game I got into when I was in college. It had just come out, and I always loved it. So I'm doing a little bit more blending here because I want a better blend there and I kind of lost it. So the nice thing about wet blending is you can just always go back in over the top and just try to blend along your little narrow area there. If you really want to blend a very small area on top of another, you can switch to a smaller brush and that will help you. Yeah, Shadowrun's just such a great setting. Like, there are times the system frustrates me, but the setting is lovely. When am I running another werewolf game? Not for a long time. I ran one just before I left Texas, actually. So I'm werewolfed out, but I don't know. I've been putting a lot of work into my writing lately, Winterkill, so it uses the same energy. So it's like I can D&D, I can run a game, or I can write more. And lately, the writing has been winning. As it should. I have far more young adult fantasy based on Norwegian, set in a world based on Norwegian folktales. That's your fundamental right there, Winterkill. That's what it is. And it is, I'm submitting it to agents. I'm getting I'm earning my rejections now. But I'm also working on revising the second book, so. Editing. The editing. Alright, so let's try to do this blending thing, except do it with this gray. It's going to be a little more challenging up here. And I'm going to go to a smaller brush, because this is a much smaller area, and I want it more, I want it more focused. So switching to a smaller brush to blend a smaller area. So you don't have to use a big brush for wet blending. Like, some people will tell you to just use big brushes, but you can do tiny wet blending. It just takes a little bit more, of a fine touch. And you don't even need to be, like, that precise. I mean, the nice thing about wet blending is you are kind of smooshing two colors together. I can thin down my wolf gray a bit here, though, because I definitely put on a base coat, so I don't need to worry about coverage. Although you notice my coverage is turning out just fine on this wing, because I'm having to go back over things and reblend them and blend them up a little bit more. And so in the end, I'm getting good coverage on the underside of my wing here. The one thing I probably will not do is I will probably not do stripes on the underside of the wing. I kind of like that better as a topside thing. I think I want to work up this to be a bit more transparent and pale and have the blending be kind of the point on the underside of the wing, but I'm thinking about it. I could do a couple of just really pale stripes just near the body maybe to carry on the color scheme. I'm still thinking about it. Something you debate as you develop the model. You figure out, what do I really want to do here? One thing I think I'm going to do... That's very, very Russian. Yeah, I have... There is a link to, like, a kind of a fantasy Russian society. There's room for that in my world. I kind of sideways reference it at one point, but I'm not focusing on that in this this set. I do pull a little bit from French fairy tales as well, though. It's not a straight up retelling or anything. It is strongly based on a particular Norwegian folktale with guest appearances and influence from many other Norwegian folktales, but it's an original spin-off of it. So I love folklore in all its forms. So as a kid, I read a lot of it. Yeah, that's true, Daffodweir. Shadowrun book didn't have one of those what's an RPG. Although these days they do that because they want to be friendly if you pick up the book and you have no idea, right? They're trying to be friendly to new users. Although I find that more people get pulled into role-playing by their friends who already know it. But still. Alright, so I'm doing a little bit of purple shadow right under here on the underside of that before we hit the gray. And then I'm going to come out from that with a little bit of red. So we are putting kind of a dark purple shadow in between these scales here, and where we're going to kind of bleed the red and maybe the orange in to the underside here of the neck. We still want the gray to show, so we do have to be a little careful about it. Right, folktales, Marchen. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, when I say Norwegian folktales, I do not mean like Norse myth. I mean Norwegian folktales. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's a lot, like, I mean, the folktale that I'm working with that's Norwegian is originally a version of a Greek myth that's just retold. Like, you can find those parallels. I think that everybody's myths come from everywhere else. Or folktales, rather, sorry. It's fascinating, too, to see how they travel, like, how a version of this shows up in, someplace, like, halfway across the continent. It's really cool. But yeah, it's totally, although I thought, like, the Renard the Fox stories and all that, those were very French, but maybe I don't know, I haven't looked, like, really closely into them. Maybe they are Germanic in origin. No idea. So I'm just bringing in a little bit of the red here. I don't want to go too pink. I'd have to dig out my Renard book. I have one book of French folklore that was probably the most famous one. I'd have to look it up. I do not know where I stuffed it. But there are a couple of and I also have a Fairy Tales of Many Lands book that illustrated by Arthur Rackham, which was a book I had when I was very young, a very little kid, and then I don't know where it all went to when I went off to college, so I actually reacquired it as an adult because it was a great book. There's at least a couple of French tales in there. But you're right, they could be very Germanic in origin. Although that's just, I mean, it's a very relatively geographically close areas there, so you probably would have crossovers in stories, right? So just a little bit of hint here. Yeah, almost every society has the trickster. Because they need the example of what not to do. They needed somebody to illustrate the bad behavior. Or sometimes the good behavior. I mean, a lot of the tricksters in European folk tales are actually the protagonists. So, when you've got the country lad who, like, sets out to, like, outwit the troll for the princess's hand in marriage, he's usually using guile. He's usually not using strong, So it's interesting the differences you get, right? in the trickster lore. Like, Coyote, I would say, is like the example of, well, he's humorous, but he's like the trickster of don't do this. Please don't act like this. Although even then, you know, there's like Coyote wisdom where he was showing how to think about something in a different way. So there's a school of scholarship that talks about Coyote as far as what the lessons that Coyote teaches are. So, yep, Raven on the Pacific Northwest. Raven is the Coyote analog, kind of. Although Raven is very different because he's also a creator in some stories. I think, and even in most stories, I'd have to look. I don't know. I haven't done a comprehensive reading of like Raven legends. Let's see here. So I'm trying to figure out how much red I want here, guys. I don't want too much. You can see I'm using it very lightly. I'm really thinning it down a bit on my brush. But I want the suggestion there so that this looks like it belongs together and it just doesn't come out in gray all at once. And I am using a little orange as well. So I definitely want that little hint of red coming up in the shadows here. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell what words are coming from original like folklore and what are modern made up by like urban fantasy writers and stuff like that, because a lot of times writers, and I speak as one, will draw on historic terms for a thing and just change them a little bit or derive from them to get a name for their particular culture or monster in their world. So you could easily get confused by that and wonder. And then, you know, sometimes they'll use an actual creature with its actual name, historical name. Meaning one that they did not make up. So yeah, it can be hard sometimes to figure out what's a traditional source and what's not. I'm going to get a little bit of orange in here, work it in. There we go. Yeah, often we'll combine words and change that. With my Norwegian stuff, I tend to look up actual words in Norwegian and find variants of them until I can find a word that sounds like one of those words and use that. You're always looking for inspiration that's tied to something. Because it gives you a jumping off point. It's like starting with concept art on a miniature. If you're basing it on a piece of like fantasy artwork, it gives you a good jumping off point. You don't necessarily... It's like this model. We decided to get close to this, but we're really just using this as a jumping off point. Like, I'm not planning on bringing the black stripes over the shoulders like that. I don't really want to. I wanted the stripes mostly to be on the wings because the scale pattern is more... a bigger scale pattern here, so it wouldn't work. The stripes wouldn't work across that like it will over these really much finer... They're little dot scales. They're much finer. But yeah, you just wanna... You want something that sounds right. Oh no, I rubbed paint off of the wing. Eek, look at that! That's alright, we can fix it. This happens. It's because I've been sitting here rubbing this wyvern against the paper here. Which probably argues that now that that it is time to mount the wyvern on his base so that he no longer rubs against the paper. And also argues that it's time for me to do what I usually do and grab my bubble wrap. Especially because it's like right here close at hand. I really have no excuse not to grab the bubble wrap and give the wyvern a nice little cradle to lie in so that he doesn't rub off his wings. Go have lunch. Yeah, I totally missed my stretch break. I'm just going to skip it today. I'll do a couple more exercises after stream. I got very interested in what y'all were talking about, so we all obviously just missed our stretch break. We can hydrate, but I may as well just keep going now because it's like 10 minutes till the end. I'll do my stretches before I take my walk. But I did my full yoga this morning, so I feel like I'm pretty strong, pretty good. The back feels pretty good. It may glare at me later. We'll see. No, I really don't, Marshan. Like my back went out a few months ago, and this is what made me start doing yoga in the morning because my core was so darn weak. And I was just sick of it. So I actually do not usually skip. This is the first time I've skipped it, actually, I think, since that happened. So the stretch break is real and important. But it really doesn't make sense to do it when I've only got 10 minutes left. Why interrupt the stream for 3 minutes at that point? I can just do it once I'm done. But yeah, I do feel it is important to commit to stuff and not let yourself slide too far. Because once you skip it, you get even more likely to skip it the next day. In my experience, that's how I work. That's my own little sad brain will start saying, you could just start skipping it all the time. You don't really need it anymore. It's the evil voice. That's the evil voice inside my head. Yeah. My back's been much better since I started doing the morning stretches, Dr. Bob. Okay, I do a yoga routine. That's probably about 20 minutes. Yoga and physical therapy stretches that my doctors taught me. And it's really made a huge difference, so I'm pretty passionate about doing it every day. Oh, the yoga does great for me. I don't really feel like I need any more tools, Marshan. I've got like Pilates, yoga. I had like 4 months of PT when my back went out the time before that. I've got a lot of exercises. Really, it's just important for me to get my core stronger. So, and yoga and Pilates and PT are all very good at that. So I feel like it's good. But I do like to stretch a little in the middle of the stream because I use a kneeling chair here, but painting still involves like bending over and leaning a lot. No matter what you do with miniature painting, at least when I'm doing it under camera, I have no choice. I can't just hold it up here. I have to hold it down here. So it's always good to stretch. Always good to stretch. Plus, we all sit too much today, right? We all sit too much. We are sedentary creatures, and it's not good for us. There we go. That's got that. I'm going to flop him over and see what we can do. We're almost out of time. Yeah, I feel you, Dr. Bob. Sorry about that. And actually, you know what? If I needed to know chiropractic push-ups, I could just ask my sister-in-law, who's a chiropractor. She probably would know them. But yeah, push-ups not my favorite thing. I do planks. I do some half push-ups because I am not strong enough in the upper body to do a full push-ups. And I like to set myself up to succeed, so I modify the moves. But yeah, it's really useful. Like, whatever you can do. Because we're all, like, with us miniature painters, like, we're so bad at keeping ourselves, like, flexible and getting our core stronger. Gamers. It's the gamer stereotype. And although I don't fit some of the worst aspects of it, I certainly do fit some aspects of it. There we go. We get his little paws highlighting. Right. Yeah, work from home. David's definitely said that he's his teammates, since they've been working from home, have been having a lot more like back, shoulder pain, stuff like that, because they don't have the ergonomic desks that they have in the office. So it definitely is. That's definitely a thing. Work from home has definitely not been good for a lot of people. Give this little pause a highlight there. We'll see if I still like that. Yeah, I've never been hardcore into working out. Like, I like weight training a little bit, but I tend to just do it a bit. I do my cardio every day, though. And my yoga. Alright, so let's get some shading in here. I'm going to get that Kraken Ink. I thinned it down. I'm going to kind of use it to shade in between areas gently. I don't really want a line here because this is all the same surface. It's the hand. So more using it for shading, except a little bit of like kind of essential lining between where the fingers here, the webbing of the fingers, just to bring the paws out. Otherwise, we're using it to shade the mahogany brown. And now we can grab the red and bring that down a little bit more. Start outlining the struts. And just go slow. Use short brush strokes. And remember, if you mess it up, it doesn't matter. Just touch it up. Century ride on your bike. Neat. Neat, Zen. That's okay. Just work on it a little bit a day. Small changes. Big progress. Just kind of working my way out here. I'm trying to figure out how far I want to go before I go back and start introducing some purple into the top bits. Ooh, kickboxing. Nice, dog father. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have a hip that acts up too, so I feel it. I used to have bursitis in it when I was working on my feet a lot. It's much happier now. I still have to stretch it every night, though. So again, short, quick strokes. I find if I do like just little flick strokes like this, like little dashes, and do it fairly quickly, I actually get a straighter brush stroke than if I'm trying to paint slowly. As we outline this wing to see if we'll like it. I like it so far. I'm going to tell you that. So far, I like the underside of the wing. I like the lighter orange, and I'm gonna continue to lighten that. I'm bringing that red all the way out to the struts. But that happens, Dr. Bob. Here, I will purposefully overpaint into the webbing. Oh no, look, I overpainted into the webbing. Here I am. I will now fix it. First of all, it's a really dark color into a light color. So the first thing you do is you put white or your Syrian sand over it to make it lighter, because that's going to make your orange cover better over it. So your first step when you blurf with a dark color into a light color in a place you do not want is to take an off-white or a white. Let's take our Assyrian sand. And paint your Assyrian sand right over the top of that blurf. There. Now it's like you've primed it. And then you take your orange, which you started. Remember, it was a Assyrian sand and orange mix. And you paint the orange over it. You grab a little bit of your Assyrian sand. And you just do little tiny blending. Ta-da! You have mostly fixed it. And then once it's dry, if you really need to, you can use layering or glazing to make it do. Right, see? That's how you fix it. There you go, Dr. Bob. Voila! It's super fast fix, but you gotta lay down that light color over the dark blur first. Be not afraid to mess up. Pardon me, I've got an area I missed over here, so I'm taking a real quick moment to touch it up. But hopefully, like, having that, putting down the white first should ensure that you don't overwork the area. Oh, I could do worse. I could do a huge dark stripe across the wing and fix it. You gotta not fear. It's like Quindy said, we don't fear the blorf. Don't fear the blorf. It's acrylic paint. The best thing about acrylic paint is you can paint over it. It's so easy. Just remember that if it's a dark blorf over a light surface, in order to get it to look right, you want to paint a white or an off-white that works. I use this one. Over the surface first, then go back over it with your light color. And you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. You can do the same thing. You could actually block out the entire dark blorf. If I put a huge blorf stripe over this whole wing, even over the red parts, I'd still use white. And then I just repaint it. It wasn't technically a lot of time if you think about it. I mean, I did it in one show for you guys, right? So that's not a lot of time, considering all the other things I was working on this show, like working on the neck up here, you know, and doing this, and I touched up some stripes, and I worked on a paw. So I mean, it probably took half an hour to do this blend on the wings, which is not bad at all for how good it is. I mean, I don't consider that a lot of time. That was pretty quick. And I just fixed my blorf in like under a minute. So do not panic when you make a blorf, guys. Just fix it. You can fix it. Just use that trick if you're painting a light color and you dark blorf. If you're painting a dark color and you light blorf, it's usually really easy because dark colors tend to cover over pretty fast. So don't think I have to tell you how to fix that one, but yeah. He's a very sunset wyvern, isn't he? Though a little bit more muted than a sunset. A polluted sunset. Aw. Wyvern is sad now. I guess all sunsets come from pollution, so that's not really... Or air particles in the air are what makes pretty colors in sunset. So. There we are. Alrighty. And I just have to do that one little, but I'm liking these struts. I like how it looks. I'm going to make them darker up near the top. We're almost to the end of the stream. I just have like 5 more minutes. Yeah, it's progress, not perfection. I mean, I am a perfectionist. I do like to, I've managed to tame my perfectionism to have it be, you know, oh, this looks good. All right, we're good. So I don't try to like make everything perfect. Unless I'm painting for competition, then it has to be everything must be perfect. Then I tend to be a little bit harder on myself, but perfectionism is only good until it stops you from working. Like when perfectionism causes you to freeze and not paint something, that's when you need to kick perfectionism to the curb. Because it will do that sometimes. Sometimes you can't have too much invested. You just got to go ahead and do it. And remember, if you screw it up or you don't like it, you can always prime over it and paint it over. As long as you don't use really, really thick paint, you should be able to do a reprime and not even strip it. I don't even strip. I just reprime. Because my paint is so thin, it doesn't matter. That's Kraken Ink. Yeah, the dark that I'm adding is, you can't really see the purpley color very well because it's, but you can kind of see it there. So yeah, that's Kraken Ink there. Just at the roots. I want to kind of have a fade on the struts, just like I've got a fade on the wing membrane. Yeah, it's kind of analysis paralysis, yeah. Right, exactly, Dr. Bob. The only time that that gets messy is, you know, when you've got too much cheese and maybe your pan is like not acting like it should, and your cheese starts to get stuck to the bottom. Then it can be very, very alarming to be making an omelet and getting scrambled eggs, but still workable. So yeah, just want to get a little bit of a fade in here. Yeah, it's definitely lunchtime. Definitely lunchtime. All right, so what we did today is we set up the underside of the wings. We base coated the gray underside of the Wyvern, at least up on his front end, so that we could get started on that. We talked about glazing and wet blending, big and small, to get your gradients and kind of tie your areas to each other on an organic monster. We did a touch up on the wing. We talked a little bit about patterns. We talked a lot about a bunch of other stuff. There we go. So our Wyvern is coming along. He's definitely going to be bright and shiny. And then on Monday, it's half-orc day. Maybe we'll start on her crystal stuff. Maybe I'll start on her blue. Yeah, you have a good day, Martian. And everybody else. Daffod Weir, Winterkill, and Carrie Michael. Yeah, everybody have a fantastic weekend. This weekend is busy for me, but should be fun. We have some fun in it. So yeah, that'll be where we're going. Indeedy. Who are we rating today, Reaper? Paul Pape Designs. All right, sounds fun. Cool, guys. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you again Monday morning. Bright and not so early for many people. See you later. Bye-bye.